Hello, Uniquely One community. I am so grateful to have you here and so delighted to bring you this message today. We want to talk today about the 5 pillars of health, and I hope that this resource blesses you, challenges you to think, and just to dig deeper into your health. So, what are the 5 pillars of health? Well, the 5 pillars of health are gut function, hormones, nutrition, detoxification, and exercise. And of course, that's kind of big picture. There's so many other components of who we are as a human, but we're talking big picture health components here. And before we dig into any of those, I would like to just kind of challenge you to think about health and where we're at as a society in our healthcare system. So we have a health crisis. I think everyone can identify with that. We have rising rates of things like diabetes, heart disease, cancers, despite new technologies and pharmacologics that are coming out too. And I think that you can agree with me that most of our model is about reaction instead of being proactive. So how do we prevent disease instead of reacting to a disease that is already occurring in our bodies? So the rest of science that is not tied to a pharmacological, it's called root cause medicine. And if you're familiar with a term called functional medicine, it's just digging into the deeper part of that root. Going deeper below the surface, not just treating the symptoms, but actually figuring out why your body is telling you these symptoms. So anyways, that's my little segue, and back to the 5 pillars of health. So let's talk about gut health, okay? Because I really think gut health, not only do I think, so the research shows gut is so central, right, to our health. And you probably have recognized that in your own life. You know, when your gut is not a good place, maybe you're gassy all the time, or you can't figure out what to eat because things just don't make you feel good. They make you feel inflamed, or they don't give you the energy or the fuel that you need. But when we can really hone into the gut of what's going on, they actually call the gut the second brain. We can really hone into things like, what are our hormones doing or not doing? How about our neurotransmitters, the things that bring us joy, serotonin, dopamine, those types of things? Are we low? Are we high? Why? So when we talk about gut health, let's think about the microbiome, which is this beautiful ecosystem in our guts. And it's composed of all these wild things that we don't always think of as good. So it has yeast, and it has bacteria, and it has viruses, and it has all these things. And we need some of them. We don't need them out of proportion, and we don't need the wrong kinds of them, which tends to happen when we get what we call dysbiosis in our guts. So, what else do we need to know about the gut? We talked about kind of the influence that it has on neurotransmitters. And let's just take a really quick example that I think a lot of people will be familiar with. But so you can take an antidepressant, right? Take a pill, and it actually keeps the serotonin in your gut longer. But if you have low serotonin, why don't we figure out why we have low serotonin instead of treating the problem? Let's get to the root. Why? Maybe you have too much yeast. Maybe you have too much bacteria. Maybe your gut isn't getting the good nutrients that it needs to really thrive and give you the support around those neurotransmitters. So these are things that I love diving into. Let's also talk about things that can impact the gut. So chlorinated water, additives in our food, stress, high cortisol levels, caffeine, all sorts of things. So just food for thought. So that's the gut, our number 1 pillar. Let's talk about hormones. So how many people struggle with hormone imbalance? Maybe you struggle, maybe you know somebody who does. But hormone imbalance can also affect our brain function, our mood stability, things like that. And I always really encourage my clients to work with a functional medicine provider, because as a nurse coach, I actually cannot order labs for you or diagnose things that the results from your labs. But I love working with functional medicine provider. And you might know, this is a little segue, but you might know that I was a nurse for a functional medicine doctor for 5 years and learned a ton about the value of kind of looking under the hood and digging in deep with different labs. And so I'm a huge proponent of that. So I would say get a full hormone panel. Like, let's get a baseline. Let's test, okay? Like, where are you at? Are you low in estrogen? Are you high in testosterone, progesterone, those types of things? Let's get a baseline. And then we can really dig in from there. If we want to know, if we want to influence hormones the most, we start by working inside out, okay? So we live in a society right now where it's, oh, go get a shot of testosterone. Oh, let's put you on hormones right away. Well, let's see if there's something inside of us that we can try and impact for the better. And I'm not saying that those are bad. Those are great options sometimes for some people, but I don't think it's the first place that we should go. Does that make sense? Okay. Anyways, let's give an example about hormones. So let's talk about, how about cortisol? So a lot of people are pretty high stress right now. We live in a society where we live with a lot of stress. We go, go, go. So let's talk about kind of the pathway with that. So let's say that we have more stress and we store more cortisol. So cholesterol is the pathway for like the building blocks of being able to use that cortisol efficiently. So to make cortisol due to elevated inflammation, now we're stilling hormones to be able to feed that stress response and that cortisol output. Does that make sense? So things like DHEA, our estrogen, our testosterone, those will all be negatively impacted because of our elevated stress levels and a high cortisol level. So, like I said, we might need a bioidentical, but let's explore what's going on inside. Let's see how we're managing stress. Let's see how our sleep is. Let's see what we're eating. Let's just kind of take a big picture of our overview of our life, okay? Then we kind of dive into nutrition. And I mean, everybody's talking about nutrition, right? There's this fad diet and that and this, and maybe you've tried some of them and maybe they've worked for a time, but are they sustainable? Are they giving you the results long term that you really desire for yourself and that your body is needing? So that would be a question that I would leave with you. And I think with nutrition, going back to the basics is always a great place to start. So we need to know how to get good nutrition, the fuel. We need to think about oxidative versus antioxidant. You know, antioxidant is like, let's talk about like a rusty pipe. That would be oxidative. But antioxidant would be like, it's cleaned out, it's flowing, like things are going good in there and it looks clean. And we want to trend more towards an antioxidant viewpoint. So are the things that I'm eating causing more of an antioxidant or an oxidative response within my system? You might know a lot of people who have food allergies, inflammation. Those things can really be and stress out our adrenals, which are two little almond-sized glands on the top of our kidneys, which help us regulate stress. So if we're constantly hitting those because our body is inflamed, then we're going to kind of go upstream from there. And oftentimes thyroid takes a hit, and our endocrine system again. So also with our body starts to do interesting things. So it converts sugar into fat, and then we have this unwanted weight that we can't seem to get rid of despite how much we exercise or the things we're eating. And that's really, again, a cause of like, hey, let's go upstream. So I think that was kind of my example there for the nutrition. Let's talk about detox, okay? So one of the most important things I think that is really crucial to share is that we don't really want to do a detox program without really knowing what's going on in our body. So we want to test before we test, not guess. Because think about this, if our detox pathways are clogged up and now we're doing something to cause our body to detox, and we have all these toxins now flowing around inside of us that can cross the blood-brain barrier and cause actually more problems, let's make sure and do this the right way. So we can find out where the toxins are coming from first. And maybe you've heard the overview term of endocrine disruptor. I teach a whole class on this, by the way, in my environmental toxins class. But there's phthalates and BPAs and all sorts of different chemicals that we are exposed to on a daily basis, whether it be our cleaning products, our personal care products, our water that we're drinking, the things our food comes in, like plastics. And so just heightening awareness around that and finding out the root of where these endocrine disruptors are coming from. And then we do the best we can to try to alternate and shift out those things that are constantly exposing our system to these toxins. I'm really passionate about this topic, but endocrine disruptors are another major way that we negatively impact our hormones. And when our hormones are off, we don't feel good. We don't feel ourselves. So I love to work with clients through that. We know that endocrine disruptors can lead and cause cancer, the development of cancers, and like I said, we just don't want to start there. But you also have probably heard of a term that a lot of people are talking about called leaky gut. This is, our gut is actually made up of, the lining of it is a single cell system. And when toxins get in there and start causing chaos, these cells kind of open up like this. And so bad things are getting in, and the good things that we need often are getting out, and this causes inflammation, leaky gut. So we really want those cells to be tight, and for the gut just to be in a really great space to be able to nourish and feed our bodies and our brains and our hormone system and our neurotransmitters. The list goes on and on, but I wanted to bring up, I know that's a popular term. Okay, let's go into fitness. So, who doesn't know that movement is important in the 21st century? It looks different than it used to look with our ancestors. People don't do as much manual labor typically. Often we're on our computers and sitting, but just building in conscious awareness, like, hey, every hour I want to get up and move for 5 minutes, or how am I going to start my day with fitness, or where am I going to work this in? What fitness feels good to my body is restorative, and that can change. If we're at a place where our adrenals are taxed and stress is really high, going out and doing a 10-mile run may not be the best thing for us. But gentle walking, mindfulness, and stretching, we got to start somewhere, and we got to nourish our body where it's at. And so just thinking through those things. Movement is key, and we don't have to do crazy movement. We don't have to go sign up for an Ironman next month. Maybe, but maybe not. And so just really learning how to tune into our bodies, I think, is such a important part of our health too. So really quick, we did 5 pillars of health. We did the gut health, we did hormones, detoxification, fitness, and nutrition. So those are just 5 of the kind of overarching topics. And I would like to challenge you with a question that can you leave any one of these areas out and have your best results? And I think we all know that the answer is no. We need balance and synchronization and unity amongst all these different pillars in order to have our best life. And my heart is that you would be able to tap into these areas on a deeper level so that you can enjoy your best life and move on and get to do the things that God has made you to do, to use the gifts that He's given you. And so I would love if you would book a discovery call with me. I'd love to share more. Would love to hear more of who you are, where you're coming from, and also share more of the gifts and talents that I feel like God's given me to be able to help people in these areas of their life. So have a blessed day. I hope to hear from you soon, and thank you for being a part of this awesome community.